I'm going to make the section on this pen about 1.25 inches. I've got a 2-inch piece of casein cut. I'll cut that down a little bit later, but the extra little bit of material gives me more to hold on to while I cut it down to 1/2 inch diameter. The first thing I'm going to do is turn this blank down to 1/2 inch. So I will, I've been doing that on my metal lathe recently, mostly because I can very easily get it to exactly 1/2 inch, so that it'll fit into my chuck with a 1/2 inch collet. Now that I've got the blank down to 1/2 inch, I'm going to face the end so that it's square when I drill my center hole. Now we'll go ahead and center drill that blank. Now I'm going to cut the tenon on there, and the other sections that I've made have a tenon that's approximately 240 thousandths, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with that. I've got a 9 by 0.75 die that I'm going to use, so we're going to cut that down to about 9 millimeters, or somewhere around 350 thousandths. I'm going to grab my file and just angle the end of it here a little bit so that my threads can start nice and smooth. And I've got my 9 millimeter by 0.75 die in my die holder here. And I've got some of this Crisco non-stick spray that I'm going to use as a lubricant. And put some on the die. Okay, so what I've done here is put my die up against the material to be cut, and got just a little bit of pressure on the tailstock. I'm going to start turning the material, or turning the chuck here. I'm going to back it off every portion of a revolution, clear out the die. Probably would have been a good idea to tighten up the chuck there a little bit. Okay, I just Sure why the focus isn't all that great right on the material there, but I brought the camera around so we get a little bit different angle on it, and what I'm doing is just turning the chuck a little bit at a time, backing off every so often to clean out the die. So let's go ahead and back that off and take a look at those threads.
I'm not done.
Now I'm going to take my A bit and drill all the way through this piece of material. This stuff is so darn brittle. Put a little lubricant on that. I'm going to take my time going through here. Okay, I've gotten all the way through there now. Take this off and see what it looks like. I've got a 1/4 inch reamer that I go in a couple hundred thousandths for the converter to fit into. Should be a little bit bigger. I'm not sure how much, but I noticed that some of the converters don't fit in there very well, much too tight. Probably just a little under 200 thousandths there, and if I do need it a little bit deeper, I can always increase that a little bit more later. Okay, now I've marked my section here for about 1 1/4 inches where I'm going to cut it off. Now I'm going to face the end here after I've cut it down to length. It's nice and square. Now I've got to determine how deep I want to drill with my K-bit so that I can fit this tube section in there and have room to cut the threads. So measure that, and that looks like about somewhere around 950 thousandths, 960 thousandths, somewhere in there. Okay, I've got a mark on my drill bit here. Probably a good idea to use something a little bit thinner, but just about the center of that black mark is how deep I'm going to drill this hole. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a 5mm Bach tap. And so what we're going to do is insert that in there and go ahead and what we're going to do is go ahead and thread that. So what I'm going to do is put some of my Crisco lubricant on here. Alright, I've put some of my Crisco lubricant in there and got my 5mm Bach tap in, and I've just been doing this by hand. I don't have a holder for my lathe to get it perfectly straight, but I have had pretty good luck doing it by hand here. Sure, it's not the ideal way to do it, but until I get the proper tools, it's just the way it's going to have to be. Again, you want to turn in a little ways and then pull back out to clear the tap. Feels pretty good. Okay, we got done threading the 5mm Bach tap in there, and so let's go ahead and see if this fits in. Goes in very nicely. And I've got a body here that, see how that screws into. So far, looking pretty good. And I've got these, oops, wrong one. Got these forget what you call this material. I've got that so I can put it into my chuck on the wood lathe and finish shaping it over there. Okay, I've put my section on the wood lathe here so that I can bring it down to the proper diameter and shape it a little bit here. And I'm not going to make a video of it because it's going to be too noisy, and etc. I've got it sanded or turned down to pretty much the shape I wanted, and I've started sanding it. Still needs quite a bit more sanding, but I'm not going to show that on the video because I want to use my dust collector, and this is not a sanding video. I finished sanding the section up to 600, and get the feed tube fitting in there. So next I've got to start working on the body.